Hello, this is Scott Newberger with Lifecharge Consulting, and today I'm here with Dave Stitcher.
How you doing, Scott?
Hey, how are you?
All right.
Thanks for coming on
Thanks for inviting
the
me.
program here. We're going to talk a little bit about Dave today. He started off, originally he started off as a paper boy, then moved up to mowing lawns, and then eventually got into skiing shops.
And ski shops and
Ski shops.
ditch digging, construction, a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything, and finally he's into global marketing and sales,
Yes.
which is what he does professionally now. But there's another aspect of Dave that I asked him to come speak with us about today, which is a little bit unorthodox. So as we normally do with Life Charge Post, is we ask the three questions. Tell me a little bit about your success. Then we're going to talk a little bit about how it's affected you and how it's affected others. So why don't we go ahead and get started, if you'll just tell me a little bit about your success in life.
You bet. And I'll probably need you to repeat those three at
Okay.
some point in there. But
as we go along.
First one,
that's
tell
fine.
you a little bit about myself. And since we're talking about the unorthodox side of things, why don't we go ahead and start with that?
Sure.
I've had the chance to do a few things that not many people do. In fact, one thing that I've done, I'm probably a trace element as far as careers that people have done that. I was a comedian. That's not the trace element career, but I worked as a comedian. And as I was working initially as a comedian, a friend of mine had started working with a bungee jumping company.
Oh.
And I went to work. I was working one night at the comedy club, and my friend happened to be at the club, and he came up afterwards, and he introduced me to a man. He said, "Hey, I want you to meet this guy." He introduced me to the man he was working with, who was the owner of the bungee jumping company.
Okay.
And they had just acquired a contract to do what was called the 90 Days of Summer tour up through Montana and Idaho and Wyoming, and they needed somebody to work their microphone for them.
Wow.
And so they came to see me that night, and he told his boss, "Hey, I have a friend who, he does comedy, and maybe he'll be the right guy for us." And so after we met, things went well, and I ended up, we negotiated out the terms of what I get paid, and we went and did the tour, and the tour was awesome. Had a great time, pretty
Nice.
fun. Got to learn the wide world of bungee jumping, and that's the trace element thing that I was talking about. It's not what I'm going to concentrate the most on, but
Right.
not everybody got to do bungee jumping.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It seems like that would be something that you probably want a little comic relief when people are getting ready to take the big plunge on the bungee jumping.
Definitely. And I was a lot like a midway hawker,
Okay.
trying to call out to the people and get them over there.
Oh, sure.
We'd be in these small towns, and it's amazing how much liquid courage helps. They get a few beers in them, they're willing to do a few more things, and
Wow.
you get those big old cowboys. And it was interesting, you'd have girls who would jump a lot of time ahead of time. And then you get the big old cowboys coming in, and they didn't want anything to do with that. So I'd have to start teasing them a little bit. It's like, what if it doesn't have hoofs, hair, and horns? You're not going to ride it? Come on, big feller.
Yeah. Well, and I got to say too, I know Dave personally, and he is one of the funniest guys I know. So it definitely, you can see how you were successful in the comedy realm, because you've always been a very funny guy to me. So.
Well, I appreciate that. No, thank you. And I think I got it from my dad. My mom was pretty funny too, but hers was more of a dry, honest humor. My dad, his was just, he could make anything funny.
Oh, that's great.
And I think for him too, a lot of it was he would reverse things a lot. Like he questioned the norms, and that was part of his humor.
Sure.
Like I remember one of the earliest things that he said. We were setting the table, and my mom was teaching me how to set the table. A fork on the left and different things and whatnot. And my dad just kind of said something like, "Well, why do we have to put the fork on the left?" And my mom said, "Well, I don't know. That's how it's always been." And he's like, "Well, what if I would have been the king who decided where it went? I was right-handed, and I put it on the right side of the plate."
Right. What if I'm the one who established etiquette?
Exactly.
And I wanted to do it differently.
Exactly. And so that kind of, that carried over. That made me think a lot of things, like question the norm. Why is it that way? And okay, if it just is, and that's the final answer. But a lot of things come out of that. A lot of different, which allowed me to kind of be more open to, if things weren't going the direction I felt inside, I kind of had this internal compass that I really appreciated, and didn't necessarily follow it as much as I should have sometimes as a kid. But as I got older, I really tried to find things that fit into that, and
sure,
and which is probably part of what led us here this evening. And that's what we were talking about, and that's probably good. We can segue into the comedy stuff off of that as well, because in comedy, I started out just kind of doing it for fun, some college money, and I'd met a man who owned a comedy club, a guy named Johnny B up in Provo, Utah.
Nice.
Yeah, and it was fun. We did some shows, and after I did my first initial show on an open mic night, afterwards he came up afterwards and he said, "Hey, we'd love to have you come back next week and do another bit for us."
Opportunity knocks.
Exactly, and I had told all my friends the first night. I had loaded that place up with friends because I thought if I'm going down with close friends
Right.
around.
At least give me some
And
support here.
yeah,
Please laugh, right?
exactly. Well, even when they announced my name, I performed under the name Stitch. My name's Dave Stitcher, of course, so it
Yep.
worked out great. And when they announced my name, half the room lit up. So it was comforting. I thought, I could do no wrong at this
That's good.
point.
Good start. Yeah.
And so, but when they asked me to come back the second time, I thought I should challenge myself a little bit. And I didn't tell anybody the second time. I had one friend who went with me.
Wow.
A friend that was more like a brother. We'd been friends for life, and he went with me, and it went just as good the second time without loading the place up with a bunch of friends. And
so you passed the true test.
Yeah.
And then you knew that you had something.
Yeah, and that was that was an internal test for me. But I thought, hey, if I can make a room full of strangers laugh, I didn't tell the same stories. I wrote all new material and tried to get it to where we did just some different stuff, and it was great. It was awesome. Well, on the way out, they offered to pay me the next weekend. They say, actually 2 weekends after that. They said, what are you doing 2 weeks from now? And at the time, I was skiing for a local community college, racing on the ski team there. And
Yep.
and I said, hey, I think ski season, we are not racing that weekend. I think I'll be around. Why? What you got? And they said, well, we'll pay you $200. We need you to do 10 minutes on Thursday night, 10 minutes twice on Friday, and 10 minutes twice on Saturday at the 8 and 10 shows. I'm like, wait, let me get this straight. You're going to pay me $200 to do what I've been doing for free my whole life?
For less than an hour combined.
Exactly.
That's not bad.
They had some pretty good looking waitresses too. And I was young and single and not, didn't have this girlish figure at the time.
So, good opportunity, I think.
It was, exactly. And from there, it just kind of catapulted. I just kind of started getting paid. I'd worked a month at it and got paid on my third gig. And I didn't. From there forward, I just got paid, and I met people as I was doing it. They've been 6-7 years and hadn't got paid yet. And for them, and the thing that was different with me, and I think it was part of my success, was I didn't necessarily start out wanting to be a comedian.
Okay.
I found out I could be a comedian, but it wasn't my internal drive.
Right.
And so as things progressed and as it went better and better, where for me that was a hard thing, because most people, because that's what they wanted, as it went better and better, then they would they felt better about things and they just advanced further and they went the next step. Where for me, I didn't really crave the spotlight. I liked making people laugh. I like getting paid to make people laugh, and sometimes you got paid really well to make people laugh. So,
but it was never really kind of a life goal of yours.
No,
to become a comedian.
Yeah, no, and in fact, probably the opposite. I remember 4 years before I actually did my first performance, we had been at that same club, and just there one night, and I thought to myself, could I do that? And I thought, no, I really don't want to. And it just happened to be that the next time, 4 years later, when the man who owned the club, I just met him at a little get together, and he said, yeah, you're pretty funny. You should come do my club, check out my club. I said, I'll come check it out. He said, no, you should come do an act. I'm like, no, you got the wrong guy.
Little did you know.
Exactly. And my buddies were all there. My buddies are funny, and that helped. And they're like, man, you should go. You've always made us laugh. You should go do it. And so it helped to have supportive friends.
Yeah. Always.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can support you into bad things, but
well, yeah. That's another story.
That's true. Fortunately, that night they were supporting me in a good cause.
Yeah.
So I called. I set up to go out to the open mic night, and we did it. And